call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll, please.
Trustee Foley?
Here.
Trustee Chandler?
Here.
Trustee Vanderhold?
Here.
Trustee Prydmore?
Here.
Trustee Ezia?
Here.
President Gilbert?
Here.
Attorney Slade?
Here.
Clerk Guerrero?
Approval of agenda. There's under attorney item, we need to add the adoption of the stormwater drainage and land improvement ordinance. It's the ordinance that was passed out a couple meetings ago.
Oh,
That
okay.
you stick
Okay.
one inch piece of paper. We would like to move unfinished business. The Ryan Smith contract and the SYO bid. I would like to move those up under B, and we're going to squeeze them in after item B. So we can call it B1 and B2.
President's items?
Sorry,
You're moving to...
President's items.
Which items are you going to move there?
The unfinished business. And both of them are being moved up to President's items. Any others?
I make a motion to approve the agenda based on the amendments presented by the president. Sorry.
Been properly moved and supported that we adopt the agenda as amended. Questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public comment on the agenda. Hearing none. Approval of minutes, January 10th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the January 10th meeting. Second.
Been moved and supported that the minutes of the January 10th meeting be approved. Questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that the consent agenda be approved as presented. Questions on the motion? I don't have a question, but I have a comment, because I see, I'm sure there's been some eyes, the amount. There's a couple of double ups in there. Some of the bills we haven't been receiving in a timely manner, and so there's like 2 months of a few things. And there's some other costs, engineering costs and stuff related to our project. Roll, please.
Trustee Vanderhold?
Yes.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Foley?
Yes.
Trustee Prydmore?
Yes.
Trustee Ezia?
Yes.
President Gilbert?
Yes. President's items. Trustee resignation. I'm having a difficult time on my phone. it's gonna find a garbage can pretty soon. I haven't been able to print a lot of stuff off, and his actual resignation that he submitted to me by phone, I haven't been able to print it, but I did receive it. And I think I sent out an email to the council to that effect. So I think we should formally accept his resignation effective immediately.
Do we need a motion? Motion to accept trustee Craig Miles' resignation.
Second.
It's been moved and supported that we accept trustee Chris Craig Miles' resignation from the New Haven Village Council effective immediately. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Rycroft?
Yes.
Trustee McCauley?
Yes.
Trustee Kreidler?
Yes.
Trustee Kezia?
Yes.
President Gilbert?
Yes. We need to set the parameters. No, we need to decide how we want to proceed. With an appointment, there's a few options. Tom, if you can.
Sure, under the General Law Village Act, vacancy, as we've kind of done, some of you remember we've gone through this before, shall be filled by appointment of the council, and then that person would hold office until the next regular village election. Last time, there were, you asked for submittals by several individuals who might be interested, and then the board considered them. I think you went around a couple times on different votes. But it's your prerogative to do it basically however you want. Create, have a resolution as to how you're going to do it. The law is rather simple. It says they shall be appointed by the council. And so you can set your own rules as to how you do that, or not set any rules at all and just do it. So all it would take is a majority vote.
So if we want to accept letters of interest again, it'd be a resolution for that?
Sure, yep.
When would the next vote be for the village? May?
No. November of 18, the next regular election.
Oh, next regular.
Oh,
Next
he
regular
wouldn't
agenda.
be.
Well, we're going to take a look at that.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Like,
Because when I first looked at it, I had in my head this fall, but the regular for the village, as Chris reminded me tonight, is 2018. So
okay.
I need to look in further into some of the case law about.
So they would not have to do the whole 4-year term, or the balance of the 4-year term?
No, they would do about 19, 20 months.
Correct. The maximum they would do is the next election.
Okay,
next
but
regular-
they're allowed,
2018.
because he was up for 4 years.
Correct. You don't fill the spot. That person has to run again at the next regular election.
Got it, okay.
So at the next regular election, would that term only be a 2-year term?
Be a 2-year term.
Yes.
Would it be separated on a ballot like that?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
It's happened before.
Okay.
Okay. One other clarifying question. If we had to hold a special election for something else,
That's something that the president and I are looking into.
So how would we like to proceed?
Take letters of interest or post the opening on the village website? Are you okay?
What kind of time frame?
3 weeks?
No, I'm fine with by the next regular meeting. So I think the thing that we probably want to iron out right now is how are we going to determine who gets, how are we going to vote? Once we have the pool of applicants, how are we going to?
Just like we did last time. If they stood in front of us,
Because I'm wondering, and I know it's kind of off the beaten path, it's kind of a weird way of doing it, but like, I think it'd be fair if like, you could vote your favorite gets 3 points, second one gets 2 points, you get 1 point. Because I think it's awkward, it's very awkward to have somebody get nominated. I don't know, I think there's flaws to just going down the list and seeing who gets it, because somebody at the end of the list who gets nominated last might have otherwise gotten votes from, if it's a simple yes or no, I think it's flawed somehow. I don't know.
we can set the parameters. We can set the rules. Of course, there's some guidelines that we must fall within as far as state statute, but there is some wiggle room that we can set some rules.
The votes have to be cast in an open meeting.
Correct.
So that means that whoever submits a letter of interest understands the process. And they may get turned down, they may not. I mean, I think they understand that, so.
No, that wasn't the, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there might be candidates that all the council says, yeah, they might be all right. But then there might be candidates where 2 or 3 of the council members say, oh, I really like, that's my number one.
That's just,
And then everybody else hates that
vote,
person.
then they roll off the vote to the vote. I mean, but we have to do that in open meeting.
No, I understand the open meeting. I got no problem with the open meeting. We just, I think assigning the
that's,
point value.
allow me to put this on hold for about 5 minutes. Because I would really like to discuss item B, because these two may come into play. Okay. Item B is pertaining to medical marijuana. Okay, we've held a couple town halls. I've heard enough about weed that I want to make sure my lawn doesn't have any weeds in it. This is, we need to decide as a board. There's a few options, and I'm going to name 3 of them. One is we can do nothing.
Is that a yes vote?
Is that guilty?
I signed the check.
One is we can do nothing. Nothing exposes us to nothing. No one can still come in, no one can proceed. We just decided to do nothing.
That's not an option.
How many churches, the second option is this board can decide what we're going to do. In, out, up, down, whatever this board decides to do. And the third option would be to put it to the vote of the people as to whether we look to host something or not to host anything. And I'm putting that out there because, you know, there's other things that are happening that we need to move on and get past this subject. And that's just my opinion. Okay. I'm sharing you my opinion on, you know, let's get it off dead center. Like I said, we can choose to do nothing, and I'm fine with that. We could choose to put a motion on the table, and I'm fine with that. And we can choose to put it to the vote of the people, and I'm fine with that.
I believe it's an issue that the community should decide, and if we hold a special election to fill a vacant seat, you could piggyback the two. You know, let the democratic process go.
We're researching that point. That's why I wanted to skip over.
Okay.
One of the questions I get is, no matter which way we proceed, well, I guess if you vote no right now, I guess it's done and over with there, but is there any harm in doing nothing at this point in time, except for allowing our attorney to come up with some sort of language so that next month, month after, or whatever, we as a council and or however we decide to do it, by referendum or by council vote, leave that to a decision for next month or whatever, so that whoever's going to vote on this matter can actually see some language. We've been talking about it for, well, I mean, if you count the moratoriums, we've been talking about it for a year and a half, going on 2 years or so. we've been talking about it for a while, and it's just continually, we just have abstract, people's imagination is allowed to run wild, and without seeing something concrete in black and white writing, I think you're gonna get some, I know we held the town halls and whatnot. I wish we could have something in front of them, in front of us, in front of voters potentially. And I don't see the harm in allowing our attorney to draft the language so that we can more responsibly and in an educated manner decide how we want to go.
I think we've all seen at least one ordinance of some sort. I know I've seen multiple. But I think the bigger question is, while I'm not opposed to having the attorney put together an ordinance, that could be putting the cart before the horse. Okay, I think the big question is, do we want to entertain, do we want to host? I think until that question is answered, why waste the attorney's time and ours putting together an ordinance?
And right now, I know of at least 5 municipalities that are being sued by cannabis rights groups. Warren, Detroit, Bloomfield Hills, Birmingham. I would like to see, since we will be facing possible litigation, I'd like to see how these lawsuits were filed, what they were filed about, and what the outcome was. I question any business that comes to a town hall meeting and their point man is attorneys. No offense, Mr. Sorky. But I have to question, I have never seen another business come into any community wanting to participate in that community's economic well-being, and their point man is a lawyer. So I have some concerns there. And the city of Detroit, we are all well aware of the challenges they face with just dispensaries alone. Sterling Heights has been shutting down grow operation after grow operation. This is not a mom and pop operation. There are some dangers or concerns that accompany this particular type of business. And I, for one, would like to see how some of these lawsuits are playing out. Municipal marijuana and grow operations are a new entity in any community. These are the infant stages, but I'd rather let somebody else have the growing pains just to see what happens. So I'd like to factor that in as far as determining anything tonight. Just see what's going on, what price other communities are going to be paying. So.
Can the attorney, can you clarify again what it means to do nothing?
Well, basically, the way that the law is set up is that the licensing won't begin until the following, the end of this year and the following year. The only licenses that can be granted are for communities that have an ordinance that allows a particular type of operation, whether it's a grow facility, whether it's a dispensary, whether it's transport services. To do nothing means that it can't happen.
So essentially, if you develop an ordinance, you're acknowledging that it exists, therefore you need to actually talk about it. Is that kind of what you're saying?
No, I guess what I'm saying is, what you're saying is that as a community, you need to kind of decide if you want to wait and see type, or if you really absolutely want to be out in the forefront of addressing this thing, and you as a community decide that you want to attract these types of businesses, whether it's a grow operation or, I mean, there are some farming communities that have said, we want to go in and attract this type of business, but take an active, because you're either going to be way out in front and start adopting ordinances now, go through some of these lawsuits and everything else, or sit back. To go in the middle, is going to be not a good thing.
Thank you.
So I just want to make an overall observation. So, actually, a question for Trustee Prydmer. So you mentioned that you're aware that 5 or 6 communities are being sued right now. You're aware that they're being sued, but you don't know the nature of the lawsuits?
2 of the lawsuits have to do with zoning. When they passed ordinances to allow that in their community, then these attorneys showed up and said, well, you have to change the zoning now. And they're battling that. one of the lawsuits, Detroit has so many lawsuits going on. They have very strict parameters on where the grow operations can be and where their shops can be, their dispensaries. And some dispensaries are popping up in violation of that, and they're contesting that to see how far they can push the Detroit regulations. You know, that's the basis of some of the lawsuits. Once they get in, then they're challenging the community's right to regulate how they do business.
I guess my thought on the matter is that I believe most of those communities, I know Detroit at least, and Warren, I believe to some extent, they passed their ordinances prior to the new Michigan one that just passed in November, whenever it was. And so a lot of times they probably didn't anticipate some of the changes being made. I'm thinking some of the things such as zoning, the more either have been clarified by the state and or could be anticipated, properly accounted for if we were to do it now with some time that has already passed. We've seen what's in the actual law that passed by Michigan.
Keep in mind, these attorneys are challenging what's already on their books. So if we pass anything, it will be on our books.
Right.
And I'm not going to say that we can automatically anticipate challenges or cost of litigation. But again, I have concerns about 3 different groups of attorneys showing up to a town hall meeting. That's a red flag for me. So I would just caution council to take everything into consideration before we act.
I had asked the clerk to contact the township to get a cost estimate as to the cost of a special election. And I think the costs were,
Between $3,000 to $6,000, but if you combine 2 precincts, it can lower the cost.
at least $3,000.
Yeah, we can put that there.
No.
August.
August.
August would be the soonest.
And don't forget, you can, when you look at an election situation, you can go anywhere from a ballot question, which is a simple, should the village adopt an ordinance regarding grow operations, to very complex questions, multiple questions. You can get into initiatives and referendums whereby you pass an ordinance, and then require passage of that through. There's all kinds of avenues to take on that. When you talk about, I think we all use the term referendum in a kind of general term, meaning, get information from the public as to what they want. But procedurally, there's several different avenues you can go as well.
So, President Bilbert, you had mentioned you think it'd be possibly putting the cart before the horse. So in terms of, in reference to that comment, you're saying that it might be wiser to wait until we decide first what we're going to do in terms of referendum or vote by council, or
I would,
until we have our attorney or anybody else put
yes,
together.
yes.
The next quick question. If the desire of council was to have our attorney draft an ordinance, is that something that we'd be charged extra for, or is that something part of the contract?
No, it's part of the contract. But let me just remind you when you get into that the way that I draft ordinances, or try to at least, is you tell me what you want to accomplish, and I draft an ordinance that fits within that. I think what you're proposing and what you're talking about is draft an ordinance. I mean, I don't know, there would be so many variables about, are we talking about grow operations, are we talking about dispensaries, are we talking about transportation situations, are we talking about limiting the number, are we talking about areas that we're going to limit it to? I mean, those would be all things that you'd have to take into consideration with, when you draft the ordinance. And without knowing those things, it would be, you'd wind up drafting an ordinance that would be so open-ended that would make me a little nervous about you passing it.
Well,
Unless the village took a position that you just wanted to invite everyone in every type of facility and every type into the village.
the one I distributed to council and whatnot, There was an ordinance that's being proposed by Mount Morris, and it was, to my understanding, it was created after the fact, or at least in anticipation of the recent Michigan state. And although it is lengthy, I believe it's 30-plus pages, so it's not an easy read. But a lot of it is copy-paste, a little redundant in terms of details and whatnot. But it addresses all of them. It permits all of them. Now, I definitely wouldn't be proposing that that would be what we pass, but if we could just draft that, do some housekeeping on it, see what works, and kind of custom tailor it to New Haven's fitting, and then present it to council so we can take a look at it, and then debate from there, and cut it down to size, and say, no, we don't want secure transport facilities, no, we don't want dispensaries, et cetera, and whittle it down to what we actually like. Again, I in my mind, I think to properly debate what we want to do with it, I want to know what we're actually even. I just hate the ambiguity, and it just lets people's minds run wild, and there's a lot of misinformation out there, I think. And I'd like, my personal opinion is to get our ducks in order, see what's on the table, see what we're proposing or not proposing, and then make a decision from there. That's my opinion.
I think from my perspective, and I've tried to stay pretty unbiased through the beginning of this process, but through research and through talking with individuals and really being sensitive to the fact of medicinal marijuana and those that seek relief from it, and those that use it to alleviate pain and alleviate certain affliction. That is one element of this entire arena that we're looking at, that we're researching, that we're trying to investigate. The fact that it is ambiguous, the fact that there is a lot of litigious action going on, the fact that there's a lot of unknowns, I don't necessarily see any advantage for us to be out in the forefront of something like this. I mean, we have other opportunities to attract business, from restaurants to housing to other developments. I'm not sure where the windfall comes from bringing in any type of business that is attributable to this product. From a tax-based perspective to a permitting perspective, I don't see where it becomes advantageous for a village of 4,800 to put themselves in a position where we could be sued, because a lot of actions, a lot of things have not been completed yet, because there are so many things that are through the court, because the federal government still does not recognize it as a whole, because certain municipalities are making certain ounces legal and certain contraband you can have and certain things. I mean, it's really kind of the wild, wild west at this point. So I don't see why we as a smaller community need to move down this road. Again, that's my opinion. That's one vote up here, but I will just share that with everyone, that I don't see the advantage of moving in this direction whatsoever. And my vote would be to do nothing.
One concern I got is, I'll try to make it real quick. So what's the advantage backing sooner rather than later? In my mind, market saturation. So if we don't do it, Chesterfield does it, and 5 of them pop up in Chesterfield. What then do potential business owners have to come out and move to New Haven? Probably not much, especially let's say Chesterfield passes it, Lennox passes it, then we're really in the middle, and there's no reason for them to come here. Second of all, even if they do come here after they open up elsewhere, I think you're going to find that the businesses that have their ducks in a row, they're the ones that are sending their lawyers to the meetings. They're the ones that have their ducks in a row. They know the law. They've researched it. They're on top of things. They're approaching the communities before and whatnot. Those are probably the ones that we actually want. If we were to assuming we were to eventually pass this, you'd want to do so sooner rather than later, because you'll get the ones who reached out to you first because they have their ducks in a row, rather than waiting a couple of years. Other municipalities open up, they pop up in other shops, they're already happy, those businesses got their foot in the door, they got no need to reach out anymore. Now you're with the leftovers, you got the B team, mom and pops that want to open up, don't know quite what they're doing,
Yes.
and then you got more question marks.
So 2 points, can I just respond? Sure. So 2 points that I just want to bring up in your point is, one, you use the Chesterfield as an example, but let's use Chesterfield or let's use Sterling Heights. They have large land mass in which they can put light industrial off the beaten path and further away from schools and things like that. We're a mile by a mile. You're not going to move around away from these. We have 3 schools right here, or 2 schools in this area. That I would much rather attract more homeowners that want to put their kids in school. I would much rather attract more businesses as opposed to going after this industry right now. And who's to say that those that actually go through litigation don't actually give us the savviness to then attract Team A? If that's at that point when we want to go from that perspective and we want to attract, if that was the way we wanted to go, I think the litigations, I think people going out there and actually creating a pathway would then give us, as a smaller village with less of a general fund, to be able to be more savvy with our ordinances. So those are the 2 things that I would say.
And the other thing I was going to add was, it sounds like you're making the assumption that we could only attract marijuana to the village. We have other business options that I'm sure will come along. You know me, 33 years, 2 different police departments. As long as it's a Schedule 1 narcotic, there will always be a safety factor. Right now, the federal government doesn't recognize these marijuana facilities, even in Colorado, as being able to do debit or credit business. So that, because according to the federal government, if you try and use a debit or a credit card in the purchase of any Schedule 1 narcotic, that's money laundering. They haven't caught up to the 21st century, however. That makes it a cash-only business. And when I see a building full of pot and a building full of cash, again, red flags go up. I have safety concerns for the residents. I'm inclined to say we can attract other businesses. When the federal government says, okay, we're going to legalize it, you can sell it on the shelf next to the coffee at Myers, fine. It's agricultural at that point. But right now, it's Schedule 1. And I, for one, have no interest in seeing it here.
Okay. I've laid out a few options. We can choose to take one of those options, or we can choose to do option 1, which is nothing. So if
Just
someone,
nothing require a motion.
doing nothing doesn't require a motion.
Then let's do nothing.
If someone chooses to do one of the other 2, then it does require a motion. So I will sit here for 3.7 seconds.
Hey, Chris,
The floor is open. If someone wants to.
Recommendation, we do nothing.
So if we wanted to make this a referendum, put it to the vote, we'd have to authorize the attorney.
You gotta get a motion passed from this board first.
Okay, I make a motion that we settle the issue of medical marijuana through a referendum for an August vote.
Non-support?
I got a motion, I think I know where we'll go, but I'm going to make it in. I make a motion that Attorney Assorti be instructed to draft language for a possible ordinance or ordinances which would permit with regulation the establishment and operation of medical marijuana facilities within the village as permitted by state statute, to be presented to and reviewed by council and subject to modifications prior to vote on the issue either by village council or through voter referendum. I can provide that to you.
No support. Moving on. Let's revisit item 8 and establish the parameters for making an appointment.
Can I just make one more, just kind of expound on one of the points I brought up? Say there were 5 candidates and whatnot. Say because I know one who's interested, and I think there's another one that might be interested. What if, I like both? Or what if I like 3 different candidates?
Sophie's choice.
Again, it kind of comes down to like what order they get presented in.
No, because they're all going to have an opportunity to present themselves.
Yeah.
And then someone will make a motion nominating a candidate, and if it seeks support and if it seeks the majority vote, then that's the, So it comes down to a situation that you can't be snoozing, that you gotta be, you gotta be on your P's and Q's. So what are gonna be the parameters for it?
Can we get some letters of interest? Put it
I
out
would-
there?
And the timeframe for submission, for submitting them?
3 weeks.
3 weeks,
The only thing I would encourage is, I don't know if, I realize 3 weeks because we want to put somebody in, but I just remember before I actually ran, I wanted to do a little bit of research and talk to people. And 3 weeks for me would have shut me off because I wouldn't have been able to do my due diligence. So I just put that out there that that's a short amount of time for people that are like in full-time positions, families, things like that, who are kind of on the fence or looking or trying to look, or do their due diligence, or talk to people who are on council, or talk to people and residents in the community to garner support. I don't know what that means. Sorry, I don't have an answer after that, but I just caution on the 3 weeks. If you want to go with 3 weeks,
I think the
please
news
do, but
has allowed people to understand that there would be a vacancy, and the people that would consider filling that vacancy have had time to think about it. And running for an election is different than running for an appointment. They don't have to reach out to the community. It's a different scenario. So-
I'll go with whatever the majority is.
I think, if we're going to exercise any due diligence, we have to have a full council, and anything important that's coming up. So I would say we would probably need to be as quickly as possible.
The next meeting's in 4 weeks.
Yeah, how does
Yeah.
March 6th sound? Because March 14th is the next council meeting, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
March
Yeah.
6th,
So
that's
that's
all
like-
weeks.
It's 1 week.
Gives us a week before the meeting.
Okay, so
3 weeks from now. Or you can make it, if you want to make it even 3 weeks, it'd be the next day, the 7th.
And then are we just contacting them and having them come to that meeting to be interviewed? Is that what we're doing?
And then we'll get forwarded the letters of interest before the meeting for review.
Okay, so the motion should state the time frame, and letters of interest should be submitted, addressed to the clerk. There will be time and date stamped upon receival.
Will any email submissions be accepted by 4 o'clock in the business?
As long as it's sent to the clerk.
Is that okay?
Yes.
I make a motion that we post on the village website and social media an opening on the village council, letters of interest and emails of interest to be submitted by the end of business on March 7th.
Second.
To the clerk.
To the clerk.
Second.
Because I've already received one, and I am not the receiver of, but I will forward it to the clerk.
Okay. So you seconded it?
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that letters of interest and emails will be received up until March 7th at 4 p.m.
Can I clarify something? The letters of interest, do we want to ask for a resume or anything?
I didn't have to give anyone a resume when I ran.
You know,
I'm just asking, I don't know.
I think those who submit a letter of interest would probably include a resume.
I would encourage it.
And that right there may separate.
Yeah, yeah, I like that mandated it, so you actually rise to the time. That's what it says to do.
Addressed to the clerk, 4 p.m., March 7th. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're moving 2 items up. John Ryan Smith contract. This is probably more.
Yeah, we agreed to renew Mr. Rice's contract monthly. So we have to review renewing this contract, and I'd like to just ask Mr. Ryan Smith to come to the March meeting.
Yeah, he was invited tonight, but he wasn't available.
Okay, come to the March meeting because he was talking possibly about an end date in March. And we'd like to know what his status is right now.
Yes, he's-
So we have to extend the contract monthly, so I think we have to have a vote for it.
I would think so. I had invited Sandy to the meeting in case there were some questions pertaining to where we're at and what's going on with the audits. If someone has some questions for Sandy as to get some idea of what Mr. Ryan Smith is doing and whatnot.
What do you need to know? Are we right now in the process of addressing any past audits, bringing them up to snuff?
Yes, as you all aware, that we did the 13-14, we got the financials from Yo and Yo. He is in the process of doing 14-15. We will have March 9th and 10th, auditors will come in and do their due diligence, pull records and stuff like that. He is, Mr. Reisman has told me that he's expected to have everything ready for them when they get there. So we are on to our second fiscal year getting our financials done with that. And we're hopefully be able to take care of 15 and 16 here in the next couple months also. So we're on schedule as far as I can tell. We're making a lot of strides. Unfortunately, we have to amend a lot of the stuff that we had done, like Act 51, F65 and stuff like that, stuff that's been come up that we have to do that. So that's been taking some time. So we had to go through the books and make sure that stuff was allocated to the right expenses. A lot of that's been taking a lot of time, and a lot of time on my part too, to go back and make sure that it was posted correctly and stuff like that. We had some issues that everything was posted to general fund, so that doesn't, when we have enterprise funds and stuff like that, we have to make sure they're going to the right spot. So he's made a lot of, we're moving along, we got the ball rolling, we should be able to get everything taken care of and get done as fast as we can now. So a lot of the stuff, the preliminary stuff has been happening, so.
And the bank workers are caught up, right?
The bank records are caught up. We do have issues with it that we'll probably write off at the end of the year. There was stuff that we could not identify. It's not a lot. We're still identifying stuff. There was assets and stuff like that we're not taking care of in the system. So there were some issues and payments and stuff that was never recorded. So every time we turn around, we find something else. So we're getting there. Books are looking a lot cleaner. We're getting, hopefully, by the time we get all these done, we have a clear picture of what our fund balance is, a clear picture of what our cash is, and where our money is supposed to be going and what's going to happen. So that's our goal, and hopefully we should be getting there pretty shortly. Okay, anything else?
Sandy, how long have you been with us now?
I've been here since October.
Okay, so 4 months, 5 months, right? Obviously, Mr. Ryan Smith costs us a lot of money each month.
He does.
So in your professional opinion, I know we've obviously had a lot of challenges in trying to get to where we need to be. In your professional opinion, currently, where we're at, still in this state, do we need those services? And can you just elaborate if it's yes, why, and if it's no, why?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be like not having an attorney. I mean, we always need that outside counsel to help us with our financial situation. I don't feel that it would be the right thing to put all the financial burden on just me in the office. I don't feel it's right that I don't have that support for somebody that I can go to and make sure that the books are getting put where they're supposed to. I don't have all the knowledge that Mr. Smith has. The man is very smart. He's helped us tremendously. I've learned a lot tremendously just in the 4 months that he's been with us. So I feel that we will never get away from him. We'll definitely, make the bill smaller. Definitely, once we get past this audit, and then we can decide, okay, hour or two a month, can you look at our books, help us out with the audit, stuff like that down the road. But right now, he's working on the old stuff. It's a big mess. It's a big mess that he's been challenged to take care of. He's done a really well job with it. And he's what's been communicating with the other auditors to get the financials done too. He knows how to talk to them and how to get the information to them. So I feel that down the road, the bill will be really, really smaller. But until we get to that point, we need him. We really need him.
In your opinion, would it be past the 14-15 audit that we would still need him?
I would like to get back to the 15-16. We got 16-17, which is going to be ending next month. We got 6 weeks on that. I think we'll need his assistance that, and after that, we can look at the further what's going on with that. Let's see if we need his audit experience or his counseling experience during months. I mean, we have a lot of stuff that we'd like to do in the upcoming months, but until we find out what our fund balance, our actual fund balance, and what we can do in the upcoming years, we need to have this done and taken care of, so we can see how healthy our budget is.
And how long have you been in the field?
I've been in municipal accounting for like 5 years, but I've also had 25 years experience in manufacturing. So I have a background, all sorts of things, cost of goods sold, cost accounting, stuff like that. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
The last update we got from Mr. Ryan Smith was that the past audits, the estimated completion date was March of this year.
Yes, sir.
Is it still on pace for that?
We will find out March 9th and 10th when the numbers come in here.
Okay.
So it's pretty well, I would think it should be much more after that. It depends on what they find and what they have to change, what journal entries they have to take care of. So we will know, we'll probably by the next board meeting when he comes in, we'll probably know exactly what he stands and stuff like that. So anything else?
Any questions? Thanks, Andrew.
Okay, thank you.
Still need the motion?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve contract for Mr. Ryan Smith for the month of February.
Second.
And probably moved and supported that we extend the contract, that we approve the contract with Mr. Ryan Smith for the month of February. With a cap, there's a cap of 10,000. We did a question on the motion. We did a slight analysis of what percentage is being spent on what. And we determined that about 70,
Well, 71% has basically been audit.
it's audit related.
Before I got here, it was like 25% to 29% of bank recs.
So most of this time is dealing with the auditors and getting all the documents necessary for them. Any question on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Freiberg?
Yes.
Trustee Cameron?
Yes.
Trustee Burkholder?
Yes.
Trustee Vanderpool?
Yes.
Trustee Kezia?
Yes.
President Delmer?
Yes. SYO bid. Mr. Chandler.
All right, so Jason, if you want to come to the podium, please. In your packet, you'll have seen a bid representation on what it will take to outfit the village offices with new server, new computers, hardware, etc. And I'm going to let Jason talk here in just a second, but myself, Trustee Vanderkerkhoff, Trustee Cooley, and Jason had sat down. We actually went through the village, physically went through and looked at the hardware, looked at all of the equipment that we have currently in the village and the disrepair of some and the limping along of others and then the intact of the rest. So with that in front of you, I think it was actually a couple months ago, we had a previous bid. You'll see that this bid is quite a bit lower, but pretty much includes everything from the first initial contract or bid presentation. So with that, I'll first ask my fellow trustees if they have anything to add. And then we will turn it over to the rest for questions, or Jason can give us a bit of a narrative if he needs to as well. So anything from you guys?
I think it's something that is necessary. We're gonna have to do this. Some of the computers are quite out of date. So, and I'm sure you'll touch on it, but we're proposing both phases because it pretty much, there's no better timing than now to do it. And I think it helped us get the rate that we got.
That's a great point. Our initial contract for bid was for a phase 1 and a phase 2. SYO has combined both phases, which has obviously reduced the cost dramatically, so.
No, I just commented on the current status of the server. I mean, this is something that has to be done relatively soon, so. Like I said before, month at a time now.
So if you just want to elaborate a little bit more on where that equipment, how old it is, I mean, probably a 2-minute kind of overview for the rest.
So, back in August, we had done a network audit of your IT infrastructure and made notes of the age and models of all of the equipment you have, whether it be PCs or servers or firewalls or switches. And what we found is that in every case except one PC, your equipment, all of it, was past the date of support for the manufacturer. And that would be both hardware support and firmware support. And the operating systems in use were also past the date of support. So the situation you face is that everything IT related in the building, except the one counter PC that was purchased to run BSNA at the counter, has been neglected and kicked down the road as far as it can possibly be kicked. And as a result of that audit, we proposed a 2-phase scenario to get you current and to get you back into software and hardware that is supported and will be supported for several years. At our January, was it in January we met? In January we had, at the direction of council, we had a work meeting, and we went through line by line the proposal, and we went through paragraph by paragraph the network audit from the previous August. And then we walked through the building and looked at all the equipment. And as a result of that work session, we were able to combine the 2 phases into one and save some costs, and we respec some of the equipment to meet the desires of the 3-member committee you put together, and have come to the proposal you see in front of you today. This equipment and installation will solve a lot of your needs as far as support and equipment that you can rely on, and it will also put you in a position where you cannot lose sleep at night over this equipment for the next several years. And it also allows you to plan and budget for regular upgrades of the equipment, so that you don't end up in a situation where it has to be this big, enormous project every time it's brought to your attention.
Jason, I just had one quick question on the one line at the end, right before it says phase 2 subtotal. It just says additional configuration and software installation will be billed at $125 per hour. Most of what we're asking for, though, is software installation and configuring up in the top, correct?
Correct. That line is on every proposal we deliver.
Okay.
Occasionally, in the middle of a project, somebody says, "Oh, by the way, let's do that." And that would be any labor associated with that would be outside the scope of this project. So that's just to give you an idea that there would be a cost associated with it. And we would either provide a change order to demonstrate that or begin a new project, whatever you choose.
Okay.
So the recommendation from the committee is,
The recommendation from the committee is that we combine phase 1 and phase 2 into one reconfiguration, and that we approve all equipment and hardware in one instance.
and that's the amount that you're.
That is the amount. In the amount of, do you want me to say that?
When you're ready to make a motion, or if you're ready to make a motion.
I'll leave it open if anybody else has any questions.
Any other questions?
Say it's 5,000, so.
All right, I make a motion then to approve the to accept the estimate given by SYO Computer Engineering Services in the amount of $29,400.
It's been properly moved and supported that we accept the estimate for computer services from SYO in the amount of $29,400.
And approve for order, right? Do we approve for order? Like approve to go through with it? Because we're accepting the estimate?
Yeah,
I guess
approve
it's
it.
more of a question to
Yeah.
the attorney. And approve for order?
Yeah, you can do it all in one motion.
Yeah. All right, so just add on and approve for order on my motion.
Any questions on the motion?
Any substantial overages will be brought up to council.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
There won't be any, right?
I don't anticipate any at all. We usually have language in our order form that you're looking at here that says up to 12%, we can go ahead without getting a signed change order, but that's been removed. So any changes that we need to make will be approved by you before they're paid.
Any other questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Capoli?
Yes.
Trustee Vanderpump?
Yes.
Trustee Pryler?
Yes.
Trustee Mazak?
Yes.
President Gilbert?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, council. I appreciate your confidence and we look forward to getting started on your project. Thanks.
Trying to coordinate the in-space, I don't know if we're gonna do it on a weekday, weekend. You know, I don't know what your,
We'll do it during the day, during the week.
okay, so just make sure that the office knows and.
Yeah. We'll do it side by side, there won't be any interruption. It'll all be good.
Okay, good. Safe routes to school, and I put that on there. I know Mr. Brandon Kirkhoff has been working with the school district and some others, putting together the information needed for the Safe Routes to School grant. And I had to put this on the agenda because I thought, and I was correct in my assumption, that there could be some potential costs to the village if we were to receive a grant. And so the village, so the council needs to know that. And either put our support behind this effort or shut it down. And I'll let Mr. Brandon Kirkhoff speak on it. He's up front with this.
Okay. So it's a grant, it's a $200,000 grant offered by MDOT through the Michigan Fitness Foundation. It's kind of, that's the grant, that's who processes it. It's the Michigan Fitness Foundation, but they work hand in hand with MDOT. The funds come from MDOT. So it's a $200,000 grant. On paper, it's an 80-20 matching grant. However, as the representative of the Michigan Fitness Foundation elaborated on at the meeting, I believe it was a couple of years ago, they took away, it was 100% matching grant originally from the federal level and offered through Michigan at that rate at 100%. And they had a bunch of communities take it and use it and everything. Then it changed to 80-20 matching grant. And they had like 0 applicants for a couple of years. So what MDOT has done historically since they decided to make it more utilized once again, they have shifted funds from what they call bridge credits, which is from the Ambassador Bridge. Don't ask me the details of that, but they've supported the funding of the remaining 20% through these bridge credits, meaning it's a full $200,000 grant with a small caveat. The village will be responsible for paying for the engineering costs. Other than that, everything will be covered. Now, the engineering costs are anticipated to be anywhere from 20 to 25% of the cost of each project. So if we intend on using the full $200,000 amount of the project, you can anticipate somewhere northwards to up to $50,000, hopefully less than that, but anywhere up to $50,000 for a $200,000 grant. And again, the grant is used for to improve non-motorized paths and walkways and transportation to and from elementary schools. There's other grants that are available that can be applied toward improving routes and whatnot to the high schools, and that kind of broadens the range outwards a little more. We can work on different areas, but as of right now, this grant is applicable only toward improvements that can be made for non-vehicles, so pedestrians to and from elementary schools. So primarily what we focused on, the one that's worked with us and has been approved for this project is the New Haven Elementary School.
Just to expand on that, I sat in for a hot minute yesterday and got a 5-minute education. Some of the areas that they're looking at is that Gratiot to Meadow Creek, extending the walkway from Gratiot to Meadow Creek, improvements of the Gratiot 27 intersection with lights and flashers and the whole that new striping, the whole bit. Some of the other sidewalks, help me out, man. Connecting Meadow Creek and
Yeah, from Meadow, on 27 mile, isn't east of Gratiot, it's instead of 27. Clark Street, 27 mile, connecting Meadow Creek over to the intersection, so that there's a empty field right now, basically, over there, so putting a pedestrian walkway there. There's a couple less likely options that will probably be put, other grants after this one will probably be able to put toward, which we might be able to put some sidewalk on 26 mile and New Haven Road leading upwards toward Gratiot to the entrance of the high school. And again, there's a separate grant for that. But primarily, I think what we're kind of leaning toward, the 27 mile and Gratiot intersection, I think is probably going to be the bulk. I think that's going to offer the biggest bang for the buck. That, and then the sidewalk extending eastwards over to Meadow Creek, so that you'd have a full walkway from all the residents there inward to the subdivision where the elementary school is located. There was mention, actually I thought it was going to fall by the wayside, but it was brought up, it was actually after you left, not by myself, but somebody else brought up the possibly extending sidewalk from 27 to Gratiot on the west side, southwards along Gratiot, down toward, at least at this stretch, would be toward, what's the name of the street there? Clausen Street. However, the Salt River is there, and that increases. Whenever you go over a stream or creek, or whatever, the price for that skyrockets. So there's going to be some limitations there. I think the best bang for the buck is probably going to be 27 at Gratiot. That's what people are leaning toward. There is one other thing that actually was fairly popular, at least within the work group, is a connection between, and there's going to be a lot of approval. It's going to be an uphill battle. I don't want to say it's unlikely, but it's a hard sell. Possibly a 3-way pedestrian route between Meadow Creek, Quail Run, and Decor Park. And again, that was actually brought up by the Principal McCabe. He said that a lot of their students are in those mobile home communities. And again, this grant is supposed to be to improve pedestrian walks for elementary students to the elementary school, where we might want to apply it to other areas and whatnot. It's got to be, it's supposed to be improving the walkability, and that, in practicality purposes, in terms of looking at a map and saying, where are the kids and let's get them to the school, that's probably the most practical way to do it. However, when it comes down to getting easement rights and whatnot, you'd have to have basically Lombardo cede over easement rights. You'd have to get all 3 different management companies to approve that. That's going to be an uphill battle. I think the most realistic thing that we're going to see out of this grant is probably improvements to the 27 and Gratiot intersection. It was suggested that we, two things, it was actually just after we left the meeting too. So it was requested or suggested that we do at least initially talk with our engineers at this point to get a ballpark estimate of those areas that I mentioned, a ballpark price range of what some of those projects might cost. And I know even lifting the phone call to call the engineer costs money, so that might, even getting a ballpark estimate might cost us a little bit. So I don't know if we need approval for that or not. And then also it was suggested that we do a town hall to get input from there have been surveys. That is actually one survey just got re-put out there, and I'll probably make that available through social media or something, for parents, as to what they'd like to see it put toward and whatnot. Students took a survey at the elementary school as well. So, but it was suggested that we do like a town hall also.
Okay. So like I said, the main reason I was bringing this in front of the council is because there could be some potential cost to the village. And, because I don't want Mr. Van Kirkhoff to spend all his energy chasing this grant and then we shut it down because we won't support the engineering services that are going to be needed. So what I'm looking for is a motion in support with full knowledge that if we're successful in getting these grants, that it is going to cost us something.
I make a motion that we do go after this grant for safe routes to school.
Second.
And properly moved and supported, that we continue to pursue the Safe Route to School grant.
I have a question. The 20 to 25%, the estimated cost of engineering, that's from MDOT?
From the grant processor, she's technically with the Michigan Fitness Foundation, which is working, it's the grant, she works hand in hand with MDOT. MDOT gives them the money to process all the applications on it and then distribute. And
So that estimate is about what all the projects
From
have?
her, yeah. From her experience, what she's seen the prices range from, for the cost of engineering is 20 to 25%.
That's probably the standard range for engineering services.
Okay.
Whether it's a sewer project or something like this. It's a pretty standard range.
Since Act 51 funds can be used for sidewalks, can we use any Act 51 funds to help defray the cost of the village?
We'll ask that question. We have a contact in Nancy that will ask that.
Yeah, because I went through the parameters of what it does cover and it includes sidewalks.
Yeah.
So if we can use state money,
To
Yeah.
pay for the engineering.
Marcus,
Yes.
ask that question of what's your leading answer? Any other questions? Roll, please.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Pridemore?
yes.
Trustee Capoli?
Yes.
Trustee Vanderpool?
Yes.
Trustee Etiak?
Yes.
President Milbert?
Yes.
Can I ask about the passing flag?
Oh,
The, kind of touching on this topic, because it might overlap, depending. Again, I really think that intersection is probably going to be the most sought after goal of this grant. But MDOT is actually going to be putting in a passing flare on Gratiot, right at the entrance to the Decorah Park North, Arlington Drive, I think it's called. They're going to be doing that this summer. there's a meeting, the 22nd, February 22nd, just coming up next week, actually. It is a MDOT plan review meeting to kind of go over all the details and whatnot. At one point, either last month or the month before, I had asked if, since they're putting in a passing flare there anyway, and since there had been talk, and no commitments made, but since there was talk of maybe putting some roads, whether we use Act 51, Safe Routes to School Grant, et cetera, toward possibly putting some sidewalk along the west side of Gratiot there, could they incorporate putting the sidewalk there while they're at it? And the response that I got was, yes, they can, as long as the village puts bill for it. So they can incorporate it into the plans, which I imagine would save us on engineering on the overall cost of it. However, we're gonna have to pay for that. I was invited to attend the meeting. It was kind of left open-ended at that point, because I don't have an answer to that. I don't know what the council wants to do if we want to entertain the thought of that. But I do intend on going to the meeting if I can make it. And I was wondering, because they're planning on breaking ground on that this summer, so I don't know how much time and how long they're going to have to revisit the matter to incorporate such plans, if that be the will of council. Would we maybe want to, at this point, approve a maximum level of funding, or just tell me no, and I don't even have to attend the meeting? Would we want to approve a maximum limit of expenditures to put toward possibly putting sidewalk? This would be just limited to the passing flare project at this time. So we like have a motion for.
We have no idea what to call it.
We have no idea what the cost was.
And if that has made it clear that once they include it in the plan, we're stuck. Once they draw it.
But there's not an opportunity or a window of us learning about the costs?
As of yet, they have some fixed cost, no price to it.
I wouldn't feel comfortable with that,
All right, I'll let you know.
but the flare is unnecessary,
Yeah.
so we can figure out a way to get the flare.
That's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's coming.
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
But I don't wanna
Just
pit ourselves.
Quick question on the flare. Is there a reason there's a flare instead of just extending the turn lane all the way down?
I had asked that.
It's
That's
still-
actually what I asked for initially, like
Because
a year and a half ago.
It still backs
We
up at the
communicated
second
back and forth.
entrance there to
Yeah.
that plaza and to
Yeah,
that
I agree,
little.
I agree. Initially, I had suggested that, I have pictures, I put a lot of time and effort. Initially, they were gonna do it all. It took mentioning of accident rates. I worked with Semprog, they pulled up accident rates and whatnot. They were convinced enough, and there were enough accidents in that range that they were able to pull emergency funding or something like that, safety funding, emergency funding, and able to bump it up. Otherwise, it would have been 5 years later, because that's how far out they planned their construction projects. So this was actually elevated. We saved a lot of years to get this coming out now. But, no, that's what I asked
Because
for.
there seems
but
to be
that's not
enough
what we
room to
got.
just extend the turn lane down a little farther to the court.
I agree, they really do, but no.
Okay, moving on. I had sent an email out to council last week, I think it was, just showing you some balances in our water and sewer funds. Just kind of giving you an idea of, what we bill out, what we take in, what kind of balances are in the actual funds. When it comes to sewer debt, water debt, sewer commodity, water commodity. And the reason I did this is because there was a comment made recently about finding a way to reduce our water bills. And as you can see, we currently operate on a real tight line. There's not much wiggle room in none of these accounts. I mean, all it would take is one oops, and we'd be in the red again.
These figures are collecting all the money from the residents, right?
It's figuring we're collecting all of it. It's
Yes.
not necessarily what we're collecting, it's what we're billing.
Okay. So pre-funding the account at all to reduce this wouldn't work?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Pre-funding the Some communities actually divert a portion or percentage of their real estate taxes, they pre-fund their water and sewer debt, so they alleviate some of the burden on the residents. So the figures that we're looking at here, this is what we're supposed to be collecting on the bill, and then what's owed. But this isn't addressing whether or not we would be able to refund it.
It doesn't.
Okay.
No. And, but as you can see, you know, if all things were equal and fair, the balances in these accounts do not amount to a whole heck of a lot. Okay, because we have frozen our rates for the last 2 years. And we have, while the rates themselves have not gone up, our fixed costs have gone up, and I put in front of you a preliminary estimate from the Great Lakes Water Authority, which shows that our commodity charge, the proposed commodity charge will go down from 979 per million cubic feet to 896 per million cubic feet. But on the other side of that, our fixed rates, our fixed charge will go up from 17,100 a month to 18,100 a month. This sheet right here.
Yeah. I got enough paper to start a fire. Thanks.
So, just for the sake of conversation, the bill that's in front of you, if those changes were made to that bill, if these changes were made to this particular bill, this bill would cost us approximately $60 more than it would currently cost us. The fixed charges are going up. And that's typically how the Great Lakes Water Authority makes up that's how they set their budget. Okay, they give us a little credit for being conservative in our water usage, but because we don't use as much water, they get their money by increasing our fixed charges. And our fixed charge went from 16 to 17 last year, and this year is proposed to go from 17,000 to 18,000. And we have our final rollout meeting Thursday in Kevin's neighborhood. So, just to give you an idea of what's happening with water and sewer.
So what are you forecasting? What are you forecasting?
I'm not forecasting nothing because these are just preliminary numbers. Hopefully, we can get some relief on a little better relief on the commodity side, because I would love to be able to at least hold steady. And I think we should be able to do that. If these rates right here were true, we should be able to for another year hold our rates. Okay. And of course, we all know what's happening down on 15 Mile, which we'll talk about in a minute. The village manager position, this was discussed, it was brought up a year ago. And I guess I'm seeking opinions because I'm in the process of putting together a budget. And what is the council's opinion and desire when it comes to the village manager? There's a lot going on. A lot. I'm being pulled in 15 directions at one time. I'm not complaining. Fortunately, I'm retired now, so I'm not sitting around getting in my wife's hair. But this is, we need that person, we really need that person on a day-to-day, 9 to 5, to manage the business of the village.
I guess my whole thing would be I'd want them to have experience grant writing, because I think that's one thing that we've been,
We can put any qualifications that we want.
they could probably.
Either that, or we need a council that's gonna be super, super active. And right now, we got a couple members that are very, very active, and, we just need to get everybody putting in the time and energy that some of us are putting into this.
I'd say, yeah.
So, with that being said, I'll open the floor to discussion. Let's have a discussion, let's share some opinions.
I'm against it. I don't think financially just emerged from disadvantaged status. I think an extra layer of administration would be financially punitive. Plus, we don't have a budget in front of us. We don't even know if we have the money for a manager.
I'll put together a budget, I said that already.
Yeah, I know that. But we also have residents that are suffering under some of the worst taxes and water bills in the county. And if we can offer any relief to the residents, and maybe council share, shoulder more of the burden of what's going on, but, I just don't think we should spend the money. I think we have to prioritize where our money's gonna go, and I don't see a manager,
I think a good manager will pay for himself, then some.
how?
Oh, just in funds that he could go after, like the grant writing
Amazing, you'd be amazed at how few grants we actually qualify for.
Well, I understand that, trust me.
Wow.
I've heard this grant topic come up more than once.
I'm on grant finder for the village. I just went through it today. 10 pages of grants for the state of Michigan.
Mhm.
New Haven qualifies for 2.
Yep.
And most of them through the DNR. So,
Fully understand that, but there's something out there that we could be missing out on, and just in the day-to-day management, we could become, probably a little more efficient. Like I said, I'm putting it out there, and this board will decide what they want to do.
So I'll be the other side, because I've always been a proponent of a village manager, because this is a business, any way you look at it. And to have continuity in a business is priceless. You need to have somebody who is here on a complete day-to-day basis. Obviously, just in everything that we've had to clean up in the last 2 years, whether it be from the water in some of our residences, where we overlooked something like $250,000, or to the fact that we are still trying to get our books cleaned up because there's not continuity, there's not a management in place within the office. You can look at it from the perspective of a president, but the president is not delegated to be in the office from 9 to 5, and at $12,000 a year, that's not what that's intended to be. They're intended to be the forefront, the voice for council, as well as for the village, but not to necessarily run the day-to-day operations of an entire business and municipality. Now, with that being said, it doesn't mean that there's not an authority granted there. But if you want to look at something like office management, if you want to look at grant writing, if you want to look at continuity because there's turnover, a president's term only lasts 2 years, and then they have the potential to either stay or go. And that can wreak havoc on an office. Our office is also unionized, so that is definitely something that lends itself to having more of a management in place so that everybody can work collaboratively. If you've talked about the disadvantage of our audits and things like that, I would lean towards the fact that there is no congruency within our office, and that's why we've had the mismanagement that we've had as it relates to our audits, and the fact that we've gotten the approval ratings that we've had, or not approval ratings, but the ratings that we've had from the state. I would look at the taxes and water bills. We would have somebody that would actually be able to go to all these meetings to then really give us an indication and a precise information standpoint on what is going on, not only from our municipality, from the sister municipalities around us, and then from the county as a whole. I would also look at the president to then flip over, because you have a whole nother issue of business attraction, resident attraction, public relations for our village. I mean, there is a lot of things where we would be able to meet with builders, we would be able to meet with businesses, we would be able to look at some of those things in order to actually push ourselves forward. I mean, if we look at basic numbers and stats, based on the economic downturn, I have not seen us progress, only based on what we've been able to accrue from a property tax standpoint. And under the Headley Amendment, or the Headley Act, we're looking at a 3% increase, if that, on each year, based on the fact that we've lost 20% over the course of the last 4. So if there's other ways to generate revenue streams, bring in other opportunities to the village, I would very, very much argue in the sense that you need a management in place within the village. And if you look at other municipalities, there is some full-time management in place. I'm not saying that we wouldn't have to look at numbers, and we wouldn't have to look at sustainability, and we wouldn't have to look at whether or not what we want is feasible. That absolutely needs to have its due diligence, and there's no question about it. But from our perspective, from a municipality perspective, I would encourage looking at a management system for HR policies, for office procedures, for grant writing, for water billing, looking at BSNA software. I mean, all of the intricacies that are involved, you know, negotiating SYO computer contracts for the village, whatever it may be, somebody at the table to be able to do that, and then somebody at the table to start bringing in business and looking at other opportunities for revenue and looking at other opportunities for our residents.
If you look at the role of village manager in the General Village Law Act, the manager's duties since 1985 parallel pretty much what the village president does. There's nothing in there that guarantees that they're going to go out there and spend their day promoting the village. Okay, they take over clerical duties, they make sure that the trains are running right, they take over staffing duties, they present to council. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but I'm just wondering if right now we are financially positioned to pay $50,000 and $60,000 to somebody whose job mirrors a position that's already an elected position. Yeah, I would say let's wait until the budget comes up, wait and see if there are other financial priorities. I'm not against the idea. It's just that I just think we're not financially positioned with the knowledge that we have right now to vote on it. I would just recommend that we wait and look at our budget and look at the water bill. And we've got another water bill rushing at us in July. I don't think it's going to be that much though. But we have to make sure that we're financially positioned to entertain this motion.
I would not propose one if we couldn't pay for it.
We don't know that. Council doesn't know that.
I would not propose one if we couldn't pay for it.
Trust me.
So my question to this council was that if you want me to write this into the budget, I will see if we can fit it in there, and if we can't, I'll be more than happy to come back and say, no, we can't afford it.
So you're thinking about creating possibly a line item to see if we could do it?
Taking a look, I didn't want to waste my time, but I will take a look at it and see if we can fit it in there and see what our salary range could possibly be, and see if it could be maybe a part-time position. Or, you know, I mean, me personally, I would give back a majority of my pay toward the village manager.
Do we know what the going, I think there's only one village manager in Macomb County.
There's a village manager in, I think, every municipality except New Haven, or almost.
No, there are city managers, but
Well,
we're
city
talking cities with populations of 100,000
City managers,
people.
administrators, village managers.
58% of municipalities in the state of Michigan with populations over 100,000 have city managers.
City managers.
Populations over 100,000.
City managers.
We're a 2x2 community with 4,500 people.
Mhm.
So I think we need to look at what's coming in and what's going on.
I see no harm in writing it in the budget if we can't do it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that we need to take a look at, because the day-to-day operation, it's, you know, I sat in with Dan for 15 minutes yesterday because I had to be somewhere else and I was running from another meeting. Thursday, I can't be in two places at one time, and there's 3 things going on, okay? You know, unfortunately, I've had Mr. Chandler sit in for me on a couple of things. Mr. Pacoli has sat in for me. There's just, you know, and there's a lot going on out there. There's a lot going on out there.
I see no problem putting it in as to see if we can, but I share Trustee Pridemore's concern if now is the time for that. I don't know if we're financially positioned for that,
I think that was a great time
unless
because,
you get a good deal.
you know, with the subdivisions coming in, with the developers rebuilding it,
Or part-time.
and,
We'll take a look at it, and we'll talk to Sandy, and we'll see just how things stack up. And, you know, it's not something that, you know, that I probably shouldn't put action on there. I should have just put a discussion on there. Because it's something that we need to continue to revisit. And at some point, if I think that we can't afford it, then I'll tell you that we just can't afford it.
So you're not looking for an action, you're just asking us if you should
Yes.
concern your time with line item input on a
Yes.
village manager for the budget.
Yes. So we will spend some time on this. The bike trail grant, this was brought before, and I'm actually going to skip it because I don't think it's something that we're going to be able to go after. Because there's enough, what do I want to say? I think SIMCOG or the county was talking about maybe connecting all these communities by a bike grant. So that's something that's out there that may be an undertaking of SIMCOG or,
Quick question. Do we have a 5-year recreation plan in place?
yes.
Get a copy of that?
So we're going to skip that, because I don't have enough information on that. The Easter egg hunt, the the Parks and Rec Committee is asking for $1,500 to host their annual Easter egg hunt.
Did we approve 1,500 the last
Yes.
year? Was it the exact same amount? I make a motion to approve $1,500 for the Easter egg hunt.
second.
It's been properly moved and supported that we approve $1,500 for the annual Easter egg hunt. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Vanderpool?
Yes.
Trustee Capoli?
Yes.
Trustee Pridemoore?
Yes.
Trustee Haziak?
Yes.
President Gilbert?
Yes. The cemetery property, I'm going to skip that because I'm a little ahead of myself. I got to meet with the Housing Commission before I bring this to council. So I'll put that back on the agenda for next month. Sinkhole update, Mr. Chandler, Mr. Pacoli, feel free.
I didn't realize I was going to do that. I will just say that I sat in a meeting with all of the municipalities that were affected, as trustee Pacoli was, I believe, as well. This was about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I also participated in a press conference with Candace's office that day. Just from that perspective, obviously there's been a couple other updates that we have not necessarily, I mean, essentially, based on what the news is reporting, you're kind of seeing the same information that we're seeing at this point. Right now, it's a 6-week project in order to get the pumps, filtration system, temporary pumps, I should say, across Hayes in order to get the bypass to be working so that the flow can then move outside of where the interceptor or where the actual drain has collapsed. So they should have that done probably by mid-March is what the intended timeline is. At that time of the meeting, I think they had already spent $5 million currently. The opportunity then presents itself to then get in and investigate what has happened to the drain itself actually, the thing is that nobody really knows exactly what happened to the drain because they've only been able to drop cameras at the manholes. There's 3 manholes affected over the stretch of, I think, it's either 400 feet or 400 yards. But then, once that is accomplished, they'll be able to get in and do the construction. That construction, obviously, there's been numbers thrown around, anywhere from 60 to 80 million is where they're ranging it, if I'm not mistaken. They would go to bond for that money. The municipalities would share in that expense, depending on percentage and population. So ours would be obviously a smaller percentage of the other municipalities that are affected through the corridor. The other number that you're seeing, where they're anticipating it into the 140 million range, that's the additional cost that it would take to end up putting that material. There's a specific material that they have. I cannot remember the name, but it's based out of a company from Texas that creates it. It would sustain the drain then for probably somewhere between 100 and 150 years. But that means that they would have to finish that corridor. So it would basically be the rest of 15 Mile and then up Garfield, which if you've traveled up Garfield right now, you can see that the pumps are in place. And then Mount Clemens was gracious enough to give us some outlets as well. And so far, even though you've seen probably some posts, some news segments where it looked as if we were going to have sewage actually dump, so far they have been able to not have that, whether it had been the Super Bowl, whether it had been the rain after that, whether it had been just this current rain because a pump actually shut down, so they had to go down, take that pump out, put a new pump in. So far, there has been no discharge. And just so everyone is aware that in the event, even in the event that there was a discharge, all of that water is being treated right now with detergents. I think that's the right word. I might be wrong on the actual term. But they are treating the water with chemicals before even if it does get to that point of discharge. But so far, it has not happened since Christmas Eve. And Christmas Eve, it was 13 million gallons. So far, nothing has been discharged since. But the anticipated completion of that construction just in the area that it is collapsed, I can't remember the exact timeline, but I gotta feel like it's a year or so, somewhere around there.
Close to the end of the year.
Yeah, close to the end of the year for that. So it's a 6-week, then a year, and then at that point, they're gonna decide if they're gonna spend the money to go on and finish the rest. So that bigger number that you're hearing is not necessarily concrete yet, but you will see the 60 to 80 million number to change, or to not change, but to actually fix the area that's in peril at the moment. So,
They're still applying for federal funding, right?
Yes.
and the state stepped in too, from an emergency standpoint.
So is that going to subtract from that 60 to 80? Or is that 60 or 80 anticipating getting money from federal?
Once you know the numbers, I mean, that's when you kind of get to see what actually will then start to go where, and I don't know how it's earmarked at this point either, so I can't answer that one per se.
Mr. Picoli had the privilege of actually going out in the mud.
Yeah, I went up to the site and they said sinkhole, but when I walked out there, it was a hole about 100 feet wide, by about 300 feet long, and the ground went down about 15 or 20 feet. I mean, it's a big hole. And I actually ran into our state representative there, and I asked him about, any kind of assistance for small communities like ours, and he said right now it's pretty much a wait and see because they don't know what it's going to cost, so they don't know how much help or anything like that. So, but I've been emailing them regularly just to keep updates on it. But
Weren't they throwing around a monthly figure, even if we don't get funding, to the average consumer of maybe $4 extra a month? I've heard that number.
$40 per year.
Yeah, $40.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's not like hundreds,
No, it's like $3.33 a month.
which still isn't good, but
But it's, we're currently paying, I think it's $1 a month for the 2004 sinkhole.
which broke again.
Different spot at the same time,
This
yes.
is actually the third one in that
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
The first one was in 74 to 78. which is why they are looking at that bigger number to fix the whole thing, because they feel like it's.
Which they should, because this one here, 3 homes are now condemned. I mean, you look at them and they're falling in the hole.
Just one so far. The other 2 are just, they can't live in them because they're too close to the construction. So they're waiting on those 2, but the one has actually been
Yeah, that looks like it's
completely
And
condemned.
its driveway is in the hole right now.
The other thing I will say too, and this is probably different than past operations, is that Candace made it very clear that this is a very transparent operation and that we are at the table to help make those decisions. We do get to have a voice at that table, which didn't necessarily happen previously. So that's why I feel a lot more confident about this process. It's not, as you said, it's not a good thing. It's not the fact that we'll have to pay more. It's not the fact that we'll have to incur the burden of this. But we do live in this community, we do live in this county, and that's, part of where we're at, and it is what it is. But we at least get to sit at the table and we at least get to discuss options and opportunities. So that is a different element that wasn't there previously.
Absolutely. That's important. Code enforcement officer. I'm going to take a step backwards. I interviewed a guy yesterday, and he never got back with me to let me know if he was going to accept the job. And in the interim, I received 2 other applicants. So I'm going to take a step back and contact these other 2 and see if we can come up with a code enforcement officer for the next meeting.
So there's interest.
Yeah, now I have 3. Yeah, suddenly we're getting, which is good, I like that. Yeah. So that's gonna be tabled. The demo properties. Just as an update, the house on First Street and the house at the corner of Second and Clark have been taken down. 10% of the contract has been held back until they can restore the properties in the spring. The other house on Second Street, the owner pulled a building permit, which put his, I love when the eyebrow comes together. He pulled a building permit, which effectively stopped our process. So now we have to hold him to the letter of the building permit, in which he must do certain things in a certain time frame.
How many of the properties do we have that have to be demolished?
In our opinion, there's still 2, possibly 3, and I'm going to say that possible third one, which I'm going to talk to Mr. Authority about, is the funeral home.
Yeah, residents said it was listed on Truly. Real estate website?
I don't even know that.
Well,
Was it
that's-
really?
Well, that's what a resident told me, it was on Trulia, and with an old picture, like,
That building needs to go, that's been,
Yeah.
that's been horrible.
The funeral home needs,
The
at
ceiling's caved in on it.
least the back of it
the
needs to come
back.
down. Yeah. So we're going to have that discussion because we got these other properties down for a lot less than what we expected. So that's the update on the demo property. We'll keep you informed. CDBG funds, grants, action. I will have to say that between myself and the clerk, with her being new and me really not getting involved in CDBG funding in the past per se, we allowed ourselves to be put under a tight deadline. And while I don't get frazzled too often, I think the clerk was frazzled yesterday. That's okay, she survived.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we need to make awards tonight. And I think because of the amount of money that we are scheduled to receive, we are going to award everyone, help me out here.
I have your habit in one moment.
Which was the money, was it again, 5,000?
No, it was, 11 or 12,000.
It was 12,000.
It's just over 12.
At our last meeting, we were talking about holding some of it for sidewalks. Is that?
Can't.
You can't?
We can't.
2018, we can look at that again, she stated.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't. That was the hope, but we can't. So what we're gonna do, what I'm gonna recommend is that we, based on the requests that were submitted, that we award $2,400 to Care House. We award $1,000 to Helping Hands Gift. $300 to the New Baltimore Farmers Market. And if anyone is wondering why New Baltimore Farmers Market, they have put in place where bridge cards and their double up food coupons can be used, and we have some local residents that have taken advantage of that opportunity over there. $2,000 to Turning Point. And $1,000 to the Macomb Homeless Coalition. And the balance of that, which was how much?
Well, the total funds is 12,949, so the balance we're gonna ask for the residents of the minor repair home program.
Yes, we will have about $5,000 that we will have available for our local residents to be put toward that minor home repair project. Similar to the one that the township was running.
Correct.
So we'll be able to do it here locally also.
Okay. Is there a time frame on when that money needs to get used up by?
No. The whole funding thing,
I'll have information from you next meeting.
I'm sure the clerk will have the funding and the timing down.
I know Lennox Township, from last year's, and again, I've asked them the same question, I haven't gotten an answer back yet. But they still have a lot, they were trying to give money, I mean, that's what the whole idea is, to give money away. I mean, I tried to publicize, I left copies out at the bank in some places, of flyers and whatnot. Because the village actually qualifies for Lennox Township's minor home repair. And I can't remember the amount, but it was over $10,000, $500 per qualifying. Are the regulations going to be the same as Lennox Township's?
Same thing.
Okay.
Now,
Because they still had a bunch left.
with that being said, and the fact that there's not many takers of this project, we have submitted the information needed to use this money, the maps and whatnot, that we're gonna try to submit to use this money for that sidewalk on Park Street. But because of missing a couple dates, you know, it's still up in the air whether they'll allow us to use it. So with that being said, I need a motion to make these awards, if you're in agreement with them.
I make a motion that we distribute the CDBG funds, $2,400 to Care House, $1,000 to Helping Hands, $300 to the New Baltimore Farmers Market, $2,000 to Turning Point, $1,000 to McGrath, and that's the end of the motion. We started to read the 5,000 also.
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that we make these awards as presented. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Primer?
Yes.
Trustee Bertoli?
Yes.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Vinco?
Yes.
Trustee Izia?
Yes.
President Milburn?
Yes. Appointments, Planning, Parks and Rec, I'm going to table. I don't have any, I think I have one interest. So we're going to table that. Hopefully we'll get some more interest.
We also have to appoint the ways we need to.
Yes, thank you. Let's back it up. There's a council liaison needed for planning, parks and rec, and Ways and Means. Yeah, all three. I think Mr. Pacoli and Mrs. Prime were Ways and Means now, right? Yeah. So we need to fill these positions, particularly Ways and Means. While the Parks and Rec and the Planning and Function minus a member, but I would like for someone to seriously give some consideration to stepping into those positions, because that is our direct link, so we know what's going on. Is there a volunteer who would like to be on Ways and Means?
That can be it. Sounds good to me.
Oh, that Mr. Chan. See, you must have felt the vibe. Mr. Haziak will assume Ways and Means vacancy. And please give some consideration to Parks and Rec and/or planning vacancies, and I'll continue to ask on a monthly basis. Attorney item.
Two meetings ago, I distributed a draft of the stormwater drainage and land improvement control to comply with the National Pollution Discharge State of Michigan discharge program. The permit application that's been submitted requires the village to have a illicit discharge ordinance. We've worked with the engineer's office to make sure that this complies, meets those requirements. Basically, to give you an idea, to maintain a separated stormwater discharge system, we need a means to enforce illegal dumping into it, illegal connections, and a means to correct any illegal or inappropriate connections to the thing. So that's what the ordinance does. This is the same one that was presented 2 meetings ago. You guys have had it for 2 meetings. If you've got any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer it.
It is something that we need, and I'm gonna, without going into great detail, during our inspection of our storm sewers, we did come across at least one, possibly 2 sanitary leads into our storm sewer. But we need in place the mechanisms to force that correction. Okay, motion's in order. Or questions if you have any.
This is being mandated by the state too.
Well, to comply with the permit application for a stormwater discharge program, we have to have this part of the permit application says that you have an ordinance in place that does all of these things that the ordinance spells out. We didn't have some of those things in the ordinance, that's why we wrote the ordinance to comply. If we don't have the ordinance, our permit application will be not effective, which will put us in bad shape.
Do we have a number on the ordinance yet?
I didn't obtain, did we assign one? I thought we assigned one at the December meeting.
Did we?
I don't know what the last ordinance number was. We'll get it assigned.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the water and sewer ordinance. Number to be determined, stormwater ordinance, number to be determined.
Second.
It's probably moved and supported that we adopt the stormwater ordinance number to be determined. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Primer?
Yes.
Trustee Capoli?
Yes.
Trustee Chandler?
Yes.
Trustee Randall?
Yes.
Trustee Giesiak?
Yes.
President Gilbert?
Yes. Payment of bills. you guys get sleepy on me.
I make a motion that we approve payment of bills for January in the amount of $55,272.71, and for February in the amount of $257,375.88, for a total of $312,648.59.
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that we pay the bills in the amount of $312,648.59. Any questions on the motion? Roll, please.
Trustee Freiberg,
Yes.
trustee Vanderpump,
Yes.
trustee Capoli,
Yes.
trustee Chandler,
Yes.
trustee Hasiak,
Yes.
President Milburn.
Yes. Clerk items.
Agenda items for March 14th are due March 7th. And we also have to set a public hearing for March 14th, 2007 meeting for 2017-2018 proposed budget.
Do we need a motion?
Need a motion for the public hearing? Yes.
Make a motion to set a public hearing for March 14th, 2017 at 6:30 PM for the 2017-2018 proposed budget.
Second.
Been properly moved and supported that a public hearing be scheduled for the 14th of March at 6:30 PM for the 2017-18 proposed budget. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Treasurer.
Total village assets for January were $3,424,657.24.
Make a motion to receive and file the treasurer's report.
Second.
Been moved and supported that we receive and file the treasurer's report. Questions on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? New business. Request for franchise Semco Energy. I've seen this. Their 30-year franchise within the village is set to expire. And this is their renewal.
Did you get a copy of it? Yeah. With the package. Okay, so this is the standard stuff that they have, as long as you guys don't have any issues with it.
No.
If you want, you know, I don't know what the timeframes are on it, but I think you can go and you can, you know, if you want to put it off for one meeting and I can contact the attorney just to confirm some other, yeah.
You said there was a lot of time.
You have time.
I would suggest that we put it off
Yeah.
and that you talk to the attorney and that we have an item that we want to discuss with the attorney.
Yes, okay.
So we put it off.
Okay, perfect.
Where do you want to go? I guess I had a question, because reading through that, it seems like like they're presenting it as though it's kind of boilerplate and just
Right.
renew it, rubber stamp. I guess my inquiry is, you know, it's not always about money, but, I mean, is this something that communities sometimes can get paid for?
We do.
We do. I don't see that.
I don't think we get Semco. I was just looking and
No,
we
we
get
get Semco?
Comcast and Michigan Bell.
Okay. Franchise fees, because yeah, we do get
So I'm
franchise.
wondering, like,
So when I saw this, I'm like, really? We should be getting franchise fees? So that might be something we'll get.
that was my only
Well, that
concern.
could be a question that,
Yes, I'll
Substantial.
When does the current franchise expire?
I think it's
yeah, I don't know what the actual, I just know that it was like a 30-year franchise
Yeah, it's a 30-year agreement, so I think we should get it.
that was set to expire, but it didn't give me an expiration date.
Okay.
I remember in his correspondence, he said, well, we got a lot of time, but we're just trying to be proactive.
Yeah, generally they send these out substantially in advance.
Yeah, so. Okay, so we're gonna, sit on this for a month, and Mr. Sorey is going to contact your attorney to have some discussions. The enterprise zone.
Okay, so some of you guys are on board, most of us were on board previously when it was brought up initially by Attorney Assorti. The enterprise zone, the concept basically, if a municipality would qualify for the neighborhood enterprise zone, it would reduce the property taxes of qualifying new build residential construction in that municipality by upwards to 50%. We can set the rates up to 50%. That's if a municipality qualifies. Unfortunately, as it is written, the village does not and will not be able to qualify. For cities and townships, it's a fairly broad definition, and it's a very movable definition. If your population drops or rises, you might be able to reapply the next year, even though you didn't qualify before. The way the definition is wrote for this in terms of villages, for whatever reason, they set it at a very finite point in time. If your population, if the population of a village in this instance was not above X or below X in 1979 or whenever it was referenced or whatever, then you're not going to qualify. And it's not a movable threshold. It's if you're a municipality and didn't have that population by that date, you don't qualify. Why they decided to do that, I have no idea. But what I would be proposing is that we ask our attorney to draft new definitions, new amendment to the Neighborhood Enterprise Zone Act of 1992 in order to allow the village and other similar villages in similar situations to qualify for such such a tax adjustment. The reason being is that we have these new homes getting constructed now, but they're only spec homes. There's only a handful of them. Whether or not they can continue to sell them on their own without any adjustments to taxes or anything like that, hopefully they can. Hopefully this will not be necessary. But right now there's only 5, to my understanding, 5 homes going up. 2 in Decorah, 1 in Decorah Park North, and 2 in Pembroke. That's what I've heard.
That's a 30 point.
So that's,
But you said have the attorney, but isn't it something that has to go through the state legislature?
yeah, exactly. So he would, I have a motion drawn out here, but basically to allow him to come up with some language and then hopefully, communicate on our behalf to some state legislators to hopefully get the ball rolling to get something suggested, an amendment to the Neighborhood Enterprise Zone Act of 1992. Would you like me to read the motion?
So there needs to be some amendment in the state to,
Yes.
to move this.
You gotta amend the state statute.
It'll be an uphill battle. I understand that, but
Can I just, if you guys are interested in doing that, there's nothing wrong with that. We've talked about, there is a quirk in the statute with regard to villages in that regard, and it kind of puts you in a bad position as far as that's concerned. I mean, if that's something that you're really interested in, I would suggest maybe contacting some of the other villages and talk, contact potential lobbyists to get something done. I'm not real confident that me submitting something to the state legislature is going to get you a whole lot of traction.
could you at least, is that something that you feel comfortable at least coming up with the language or helping us, if myself and some others,
Sure.
to write some language?
Mhm.
That sounds like a reasonable plan. So we don't need an action on that.
I'll also get you some lobbyists that might be interested in assisting.
And if we can get a handful of villages together,
Right.
we'll probably have a little more strength in numbers.
So you'll be drafting language to replace that that quirk in that law, and then,
Well, I can help suggest areas where if the language was changed, it would accommodate us.
I think the first thing we'd have to do is reach out to the municipalities that are under that particular portion of the act. They're going to want input on language. So the first thing is outreach and talking to maybe the local representative to see if he feels there'd be any traction on it. But
The one thing that I'm concerned about is making it too broad. I almost wonder if we, don't get me wrong, I think reaching out to a few, it would be a good idea, but I almost wonder if they wrote it so specific as to limit the amount of people that would qualify because they don't want too many people qualifying. For whatever reason, again, I don't know.
Because the only community that qualifies right now is,
There's one,
up in Michigan.
Yeah.
There's only one field.
Baldwin, I don't know.
Baldwin?
Yeah, Baldwin's right.
Was it Baldwin?
Yeah,
I don't know.
there's another 237 villages in the state, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so that was my only concern is maybe they wrote it very specific as to limit how many would qualify. I don't know why. But then again, cities and townships, their
Had different levels.
parameters are wide open, I guess.
we don't qualify, because we're part of Lennox Township, we would have to present as a village to qualify for it? It
Yes.
would be, okay.
Okay. Medical cannabis ordinance.
Drop that.
Who's dropping that? Trustee at large clarification. This is right one.
Was Brett Harris made a trustee at large?
I'm sorry,
Was Brett Harris made a trustee at large?
made a trustee at large.
Yeah, last month, council was handed a piece of paper that had, different suggested appointments to different committees. And in two spots, it said Brett Harris, comma, trustee at large.
Parks and Rec and something.
Yeah, Parks and Rec and,
Right.
That's the liaison, isn't it?
no, trustee at large is something totally different. And it was presented to council that Brett Harris was a trustee at large.
Trustee at large?
Yeah,
Maybe it meant he was our liaison and we needed to replace him.
no, a trustee at large
Yeah.
is provided for by resolution or ordinance in the community, where one is appointed by council, I believe, in case there's not a sufficient number for a quorum, they can call the person. I think they use it mostly in smaller municipalities to vote on issues. That is what a trustee at large is. They have voting powers on council. And I had a question because we were handed a piece of paper saying Brett Harris, comma, trustee at large. He's not.
I didn't know that.
Okay.
But even.
That was the clarification.
But just to further clarify, was it the two, because this will be the irony in it, was it the two committees that he was actually a part of when he was actually on council? Was it the two where he was the
Yeah,
liaison?
I think trustee at large refers to the trustee from the council that sits on, by statute, sits on a particular board, because he was on Parks. When he was a trustee, he sat on Parks and Rec and Planning Commission.
Right.
And both of those require that you have, both the statutes that organize both of those require that you have a trustee sit on it. I'm just wondering if it was just referenced, that that's who it was previously.
So it should have read liaison instead of trustee. A trustee at large has, a
No, I
trustee
think
at
if you
large
read-
could be somebody outside of this council that could be appointed
I don't see that.
with a
That's,
vote.
that's an inappropriate use of the term. There's like under the Zoning Enabling Act for the Planning Commission, there's a term specific to that.
Is a trustee at large.
Uh-huh.
And it also isn't a trustee at large, an additional trustee that could be appointed that would have full voting rights.
I don't
Do you
believe
have a
the
trustee at large in Armada?
We only have, no.
I don't believe the Village Act allows for, the General Law Village Act allows for a trustee at large.
Yeah, there's a couple of municipalities that they pass a resolution or ordinance that they only have like 5 people, and sometimes they'll have
If you have a
100.
charter, yeah, there's other provisions, correct. If you have a charter, you can do that.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that, and I'm like,
No.
okay. That was a clarification.
And the
Thank you.
fact that it's the two committees that he was actually a part of, that's.
And those two statutes require
Yeah.
by law that a person on the board sits on those things. So that's
Right,
probably
okay.
what it was.
Call from the floor. Hi, Pam, haven't seen you in a while.
I snuck in here. I just have a comment, Chris, on what Ann said. I also seen that on the internet about the funeral home. It was listed on there in foreclosure, bank-owned, single family, and it had a picture, like shortly after that ramp was built on the side, and where there was curtains on the windows and there wasn't broken glass, and the front porch looked nice like it used to. There was grass around it. There were no cars and trucks on the side. That's the picture that was on there. It had no information on the inside, how much it was listed for, anything like that.
Recent or way back when?
Pardon? The picture was like right after they put that ramp out there, that handicap ramp.
Well, when did you see that?
When did I see it?
When did you see it on video?
Like last
I'll
week.
go look as soon as I get home.
It was on there one day, Chris, and it was gone the next day, then it was back up again the next couple of days. And when you scroll down, it showed like the area, and it showed restaurant, Louis Restaurant out there, open. And I can't remember what else they had, but it was like, well, number one, it was false advertising, for one. But they didn't have anything about what it was like on the inside, you know what I'm saying, room sizes or nothing. It just showed a picture of it looking nice on the outside.
I'd like to comment on just a couple of items, if I may, Council. First, regard to the medical marijuana discussion. We held two town halls, and I only attended the last one and understand that they were both very well attended. Question I have is, was all the trustees present at those town halls? Who was present? You were there, Dan?
President.
You were there for both of them?
I was there for the first one.
Okay. Then, well, you've been there, I wasn't there for the first one, been there for the second one. There was quite a lot of public interest in sending, because the last one was, it was well attended. I guess I think Priscilla's recommendation, if you truly want to represent or you want to do what the community suggests you do, since a lot of you seem really conflicted on which way you should go on this, and that gives you certainly an out if greater political backlash or whatever. But that certainly is an opportunity to give the public a chance to speak on it. And I would certainly recommend that you maybe revisit that suggestion and follow that route, because and you might be surprised. I have no personal interest in it, but I happen to believe that it's rather short-sighted to say that there's no economic interest, whether directly or indirectly related to that whole prospect. Because I think you're going to certainly see some of the surrounding communities really jump on it, both seats. Okay, and the other point I wanted to talk about was the, I guess Chris's suggestion about getting into the village manager. Maybe you weren't aware, Mr. Pydmore, that we've had two village managers in the past. They they were successful endeavors for the village, and it was really a positive thing. They didn't survive because of micromanaging on the part of the council and getting crossways of the politics because of the village's council trying to micromanage the management as opposed to sticking to policy and direction. They lost two very good village managers, and the first one went as far back as when I was first village president back in came on board in probably 1972, probably, and he was here for quite a long time. And the second guy, I can't remember his name right now, but he lasted probably about 5 years, and but they say it's a huge difference, and economically it was very advantageous from the standpoint of being able to deal with potential development as opportunities came and went, and being able to respond and have discussions with potential developers, and actually going out and doing some marketing based on what the master plan wants to see happen in the village. So I think that would be a good thing, and I think you really ought to, shell that. Thanks.
Call on the floor.
Hi, my name is Ariana Welch. I got a chance to meet with some of you at the town hall. So this is like there. But I wanted to take a chance to introduce myself to those I didn't have a chance to meet there. My brother Tori and I are one of the interested parties regarding the medical marijuana in the village. Clearly the medical benefit has been established, of which we're not involved, we're not going to discuss. I would like to, just from listening from a couple points, especially that you had brought up, Trustee Pridemore, the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act, which is what is coming down from the state level, I think will clear up a lot of the issues that you had mentioned that with the mitigation problems, because there isn't planning from the state level. But this is giving the municipalities the option of having more of that in line and in place, so that that can solve a lot of those issues and prevent potential litigation. So that clears up a lot of that. One second. Okay. Additionally, January 27th, House Bill 715 was introduced in the U.S. House of Reps. It's a bipartisan effort that is aiming to eliminate CBDs from the marijuana category, as well as instructing the DEA to reschedule medical cannabis from Schedule 1 to a lesser category, which opens up a whole different conversation. And I understand I work with a lot of law enforcement, individuals as well, and that is something that's obviously to be considered and understand, what the requirements are. But that is, like I said, that was introduced January 27th to the U.S. House. And one thing I do ask is that the council considers each business and license type individually and not just by the industry as a whole. Everybody has their own personal reasons for whether they support or they don't, or they know somebody or they don't that has benefited from it. But I just ask that you look at the individuals and whether or not that they would be a good fit with their business plan for the community versus just well, they're involved with marijuana, we're not going to deal with them. So I just ask that you take that into consideration, have a little bit of creativity and options of what you want to include in your community, whether it's no signs or limiting or however you want to do with that. I did want to mention also, our attorney attended the town hall to answer questions. My attorney's not here tonight, it's just us. number one, I don't want to pay him to come sit here through, I mean, it's an enjoyable meeting, but I'm not going to pay him for 3 hours plus drive time to come and listen to what's going on here, which I can summarize for him. But also, it's my brother and I, we're sixth generation of our family here. My family originally settled from Germany in the 1860s at 28 Mile, where the little schoolhouse is, 28 Mile in Gratiot. So we're deeply rooted here. And then I was also going to send an email correspondence. I felt it was quite impersonal. I would rather come here, at least everybody can see my face, see my brother's face. Fortunately, he sent the better looking one up here. But just that we are business owners in the community. We want to be part of your community, and we're not standing behind our attorney asking him to speak on our behalf. This is who we are and what we want to do. So the last thing I wanted to just take a second to mention is you had mentioned several times in the meeting tonight about the financial position of the village. I don't know what the tax benefits are for any of the other licenses other than the provisioning centers or dispensaries, because obviously that's where I have the interest in and that's what I know of. But the tax revenue that this new Facility Licensing Act has coming down is, could potentially be in the six figures for the village of New Haven if you decided to accept this into your community. That's just from the dispensing end, just from the storefront. And that's something that we would propose from a location that we would like to operate out of, if that is something that's acceptable. And we're in 1,200 square feet. And it's, I would think, a lot of tax revenue from a very small amount of square footage. So that's all I had. And like I said, I just want to introduce myself. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them after that. After the meeting, and also thank you for contributing CBGB, whatever that is, to the farmers market in Baltimore. It's really hard to get that. I ran a farmers market. It's really hard to get the food stamp funding, and we need more local food sources because I didn't realize there wasn't a grocery store in this town until I started looking around. So thank you for doing that. Thank you.
Call from the floor. Call from the table.
I just want to say again, in terms of the Safe Routes to School, there's no date or anything set up. I'll probably talk to you about it. I don't know if we'd host it or maybe the school would be interested in hosting it, but I do hope we got a town hall in regards to how to best allocate any.
And by the way, Dan, thank you for spearheading that. That's awesome. That was fire. That's incredible.
I want to say something. I want to thank Rachel for helping me this difficult time. She helped me a lot, but I lost my father, so she kind of helped me this packet. So thank you again.
Call from the table.
Motion in order. Motion to adjourn.
Second.